Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. How are you? I hope that you're well in your part of the world. It's a beautiful day where I live, and I hope it's the same for you. I hope your families are also doing well. It's Monday, and we're at the start of another week. We are basically, kind of approaching like the latter half of summer, right? It's already August, so we're kind of getting a little bit later into the year. Personally, I am starting off Monday filled with gratitude because we had such a great week of streaming last week. I think we had just some really interesting items. We had my friend Kyle joining us last week, gave us some really good insights as a managing director. I think Friday we had some excellent questions on the screen, really from the stream. Really enjoyed those. In fact, I made some of those into short videos that you'll see coming out later this week. And then on Saturday, we played a little game show just to break things up. And yesterday, we had a really strong class around the Introduction to Statistical Learning book. So really just grateful for all of those great streams, because it also makes it fun for me. I had a lot of fun last week. I hope that you did too. So it looks like we have people already checking in. Look at that. We have managed to have people from 3 different platforms right away. We have a YouTube, an Instagram, and a Twitch. Boom, right away, right to start up the morning. See, we're starting the week strong already, right? So glad to see that. Glad to see that all of you are here. If you are joining us for the first time, then you should know that I like to start with our global roll call just to see where everybody is from. So, and also just to give everybody an opportunity to participate, just let us know the city, state, province that you're from. Let us know, just kind of where you're checking in from. That way we can see the global community of data science, and who knows, maybe you might find some collaboration opportunities or whatnot. It's always good for the community to help each other. So global roll call time, feel free to check in. Just let us know where you're from, and I'll also know what platform you're checking in from, because we get people from Instagram, from Twitch now. We're getting some Twitch engagement. We're getting a lot of YouTube. Still waiting on more X and LinkedIn engagement. So if you're hearing me on LinkedIn, say hello, because it's not always easy to get people from LinkedIn to participate. But just, really looking forward to spending some time with you guys and kind of getting back to a little bit more of our usual routine of answering questions or whatnot, because we got a little bit away from questions last week since we had some special guests and things like that. But if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. If I can help you, I will. If I can, I'll let you know that too. So while I give you guys a chance to introduce yourself and just let me know the city, state, province, I always like to start off with an opening note. And I sometimes the opening notes kind of spontaneously come to me, and other times I kind of have to think about them a little bit. So today's opening note that I want to talk to you about is kind of the same themes that I see in the conversations and in the chat about data science interviews, and how to actually get into the get to being a data scientist. And by the way, for the first time ever, I'm telling the whole story of how I made the transition to data science. That's the video that I sent out today on YouTube. So you're welcome to check it out. It's one of my longest videos I've ever done. I basically just sat here and talked to the camera and told my whole story. But what I really wanted to focus on was, I get consistent questions about, well, do I need to know the math of data science? I heard that such and such a company asks about DSAs. DSAs seem to be a popular thing last week that I was questions on. What algorithms do I need to talk about in the interview, or things like that. I keep on hearing about kind of like these code and these math and these like data questions for interviews. And really the thing I kind of thought about, is kind of weighing on my mind a little bit, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, was that, if you're walking into interviews thinking about these data structures and math, and you've already lost, right? Why show up? You might as well stay home. Because really, what are you going to do? You're going to out-math everyone? You're going to out-code everyone? Coding and math is kind of like money, right? There's always somebody out there who has more money than you. There's always somebody out there who's better at math than you, better at code than you, right? I mean, I've been coding for 20 plus years, and I still find, YouTube videos that I'm in awe of people who can do amazing things with code, right? So you're not going to walk into an interview and like out code everyone. It's kind of dumb, right? You just stay home if that's your plan, right? Your plan for getting a data science job should be about you, about your individuality, your creativity, the work that you've put in, the portfolio that you've built from your own projects from scratch, not from your school projects or other projects, but things that you've done on your own that you investigated, right? When you start talking about those things, then you're really standing out, right? Then you're really, putting yourself a little bit ahead of everybody else. Because we all know that it is competitive to get data science jobs, especially if you want to get like a remote job or something like that, right? So when you're talking about, well, I need to know the math, I need to know the DSAs, and all, you're just talking about going with the crowd at that point, right? You're swimming with the fish at that point, right? Because that's the same thing everybody else is going to be talking about because it got popular on the internet or on Twitter or whatever, right? But you really want to try to find ways to stand out and be beyond that, because you're not going to outmath the world, right? You're not going to outmath 10 candidates, even if that's what you're up against, right? There's always somebody better than you. So I kind of want to, make sure that, we're talking a little bit more about that, because I really just honestly, I get a little bit sad when I see those questions about, individual math or coding questions. Well, you've lost, right? That's probably not going to be a winning strategy in the long run. If you do get a job, it's probably kind of like almost like a randomness element to it, right? So don't look for ways to join everybody else. Look for ways to stand out from everybody else. Your portfolio, the study you put in, the way you carry yourself, your manners, your communication, how you explain your projects and are clearly able to articulate what you've done and what those skills mean to other people. Those are the things that are, me as a hiring manager, you're going to catch my eye at that point, right? When you can explain things for yourself, or introduce yourself in a proper way or things along those lines. So I'm going to stop there. Maybe that's going to spark some ideas or some questions for you. Feel free to put them in the chat. But just keep that in mind. Try to be an individual. Try to stand out. Don't chase the trends, because then all you're doing is becoming one of the crowd. Okay? So, looking at the chat, there's already people that are checking in. If you're joining us late, I see people on Instagram going in. Let us know the city, state that you're from, and happy to have you here and kind of keep the conversation going. So, Rohan, once again, you managed to be first. I don't know how you do it every single time, my friend, but you are first in the chat every single time. So good to see you, Rohan. Good. Hope you're well. I see you have some more questions ahead. I'll try to answer them. Imaz Anwar, I think you might be new. I don't think I've seen you before, so welcome. From Pakistan, welcome. Very cool. Getting quite a few people from that part of the world. I hope it's not too late for you. I think it's a little bit on the later side out in Pakistan, but I hope you're well. Rex, our good man in New York City. How are you, Rex? Hope you're well. If you notice, Rex has a special icon next to his name, because that means he's one of our moderators on Twitch. So thank you for your help there, Rex. It's funny because the moderators on YouTube don't have the special icon in my chat, but I'm pretty sure they do have a special icon on YouTube. So I don't know why my program doesn't do that. It only shows the moderator icons for some people. But thank you to Rex, Patrick, and Joseph, who make up my moderation team. So if you see those guys around, give them a shout out. They do a great job. Piyush says, "Hi Dennis, good to see you." Hi Piyush, good to see you too. Piyush, remind me where you're from. I know you've been here before. I just can't remember where you're from. So hope you're well, Piyush. Patrick says, "Hi all, sad I missed yesterday's class. Looking forward to watching the video." Patrick, we missed you too. I know you attend those classes, for the full length, which is saying a lot because they are a little bit on the long side. But yeah, we missed you too. So watch the video, get caught up, and hopefully you can join us this Sunday. And by the way, guys, if you're wondering what Patrick's referring to, every Sunday now we are running a course on this book, An Introduction to Statistical Learning. We just finished chapter 5, which means that we are halfway through the book. So we have a few more chapters to go. 5 more sessions are left. Every Sunday, 1500 GMT. Come join us. And really credit to the guys that showed up yesterday, because we went like, I think almost 2.5 hours, or just short of 2.5 hours. And there were plenty of people there that were there the entire time. I mean, credit to you guys, because I know I'm tired at the end. I'm really tired at the end of it. So credit to you guys for hanging in there with me. I know a couple of people have been there for every class, the entire session. So that's even more amazing. Excuse me. But come join us on Sundays. We're having a good time with it. I love that we're doing a lot of back and forth. I throw out questions to the chat because, that's the way I teach best. And people are responding. We're learning from each other. Some people are correct. Some people are less than correct. That's okay. It's good to see other people's perspectives as a scientist. So we're having a good time. Sundays, 1500 GMT. Go to my YouTube, click on the notify button, and it'll tell you when the class is starting. Yeah, and Patrick is checking in from Knoxville, Tennessee. So hope you're well out there, Patrick. Usama I? Usama, I'm not sure if we've seen you before. Usama Abid, excuse me, from Islamabad, Pakistan. Nice. See a second person from Pakistan, right? We're getting a lot of people from that part of the world. Well, really all parts of the world. My analytics are everywhere across the map. Ankit from India, checking in from Insta. Nice, Ankit. Good to see you here. Hope you're well. Joseph says, good morning, Dennis. Love that yeehaw, Patrick. Yeah, Patrick's very enthusiastic with the yeehaw. He's ready to go. But I guess it's a little, it's like 11 o'clock over there, isn't it, Patrick? So Patrick's obviously had a strong morning, a strong start to the week. RL Code, we're doing our global roll call. Let us know where you're from. It's the first time I see you checking in on Twitch, so welcome. I'll come back to your questions, okay? I loop back to questions after I finish the roll call. Rohan, I'll come back to your questions. Praveen, good to see you again. How are you? Hope you're well. It's Sankar Singh. I believe you might be new. Welcome to the chat. Hello, sir. Sanskar Singh. Hello, sir. Sanskar from India. Great to see you live. Well, great to see you too. Glad you're joining us. Hopefully you can start learning some more about our community and maybe learning more about data science. Imaz says, I'm new, around 8. Been following your Insta content for quite some time. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always funny when people tell me they've been following me for quite some time. I've only been at this for 3 months. I started May 1st. So I wish I could say that I have years and years of experience, but I really just started a few months ago. I went about it in a very prescribed way to help me grow. But, it's only been a few months, so I still make mistakes and I'm still learning some of the features of the different software packages that I use. But yeah, it's good that you discovered me way back 3 weeks ago. Shashir, good to see you, our man in Nepal. Hi, Shashir from Nepal. I've been here before as well. Hope you're doing well. I am finding it hard to land my first job. Do you think it has something to do with the geography? I'll come back to your question, Shashir. Great question, but it's good to see you too. Hope you're well in Nepal. I know it's a little bit late on that side. Usman says, after this book, we will start your first year in data science. I wish. Yeah, I wish. But, my book is not intended to be academic. My book is really just intended to be like a personal read. I wrote my book in the first person to kind of make it, conversational and easy for somebody else to understand. So I think that it's very consumable for people. And really kind of my goal is to help people understand what they're going to have to, the little mind shifts and little things that they're going to have to adjust to go into the corporate world. But thank you so much for the shout out, Usman. If you're interested, my book is Your First Year in Data Science. It's available on Amazon in all different formats. I've tried to make the ebook version affordable in the majority of the world, but thank you for your support. Yassine, hello, Yassine from Morocco. Welcome, Yassine. I know you've been here before. Nice to see you. Hope you're well in Morocco. I think Rex will take care of that message. Hey Dennis, Bibab from Delhi, India. I am a newcomer, first time on your live. Nice, thank you so much. Thank you, Bibab. Nice to see you. It takes guts, right, to say that you're new, right? That's not always an easy thing. So shout out to you, Bibab, for introducing yourself. I look forward to seeing you. Keep on coming back. I think we have a good community that we can hopefully learn from each other. Okay. Bebop says the name of your book. your first year in data science. It's up here in the corner. You can find it in on Amazon. You can either search for the name, or you can also search for Data Science with Dennis, or you can search for DS with Dennis. It'll come up under all of those. And I have paperback, audiobook, and ebook available in all markets. You know, I gotta tell you guys, recording an audiobook was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was super difficult, a lot more difficult than I gave it credit for. You gotta do it a little bit, you gotta take a break, then you gotta come back to it, you gotta take a break. Because reading for an hour and making sure that, you know, the audio is good and editing, that was hard. That was super hard. Michael says, hello, Dennis. Hello, Michael. Nice to see you. Michael, were you in our class yesterday? I think you were, weren't you? I want to say that you were. But thanks to everybody who came to the class yesterday. Had a good time. Really pivotal chapter, right? So guys, just in case, you know, even if you don't come to the class, even if you never watch my content again, right? This book is a very good book. I think everybody should read it. And chapter 5 is a pivotal chapter. It's the chapter we did yesterday. So maybe the people who attended yesterday can confirm that, you know, if you guys want to add to the chat. But to me, chapter 5 like made everything make sense about data science in my mind. You know, like going from like a, you know, not just, I don't want to say a pure beginner, but somebody who didn't understand what you meant by experimentation in data science, or like how an algorithm actually does its thing. Like chapter 5 in this book is like, I think really, really key. So even if you never listen to me again or anything else, get this book, get through chapter 5, super helpful in terms of like your overall development as a data scientist. All right, so I'm gonna go back, and actually Michael quickly says, yes, I've attended all the classes. I thought so. I figured that you were one of the ones that had been there consistently. So thanks so much for your support, Michael. Hope it's helping you. Okay, so I'm gonna go back and answer questions. If you're still joining us, introduce yourself. Just let us know what you're up to. And if you have questions, go ahead and add them in the chat, and I promise to do my best to get to them. So let me make sure I didn't miss any from previous. Aurel Code from Twitch says, do you know a deep course to understand how ChatGPT is working? I don't know of a deep course per se, but I'll tell you what I did that really helped me a lot is if you go to the OpenAI website and you go to their developer section and you start looking at their API documentation, OpenAI has an excellent section for documentation. And they actually walk through an example of how to create your own model using ChatGPT. They use the example of the Tokyo Olympics, you know, the last Olympics, not the current ones, but the last Olympics. So they use an example of how they build a LLM that can answer questions about the Tokyo Olympics. And I really appreciate the way they walk you through it because it's just laid out really, really well. So if you want, you know, if you want to know about ChatGPT, go straight to the source, right? You got to go to OpenAI. And their particular, you know, their specific section on, you know, their API, I just thought was really good. And I've written my own tools with some of the same steps that they have. And even when I'm outlining projects for my teams or for my corporate clients, I kind of use what they have as a template because they really have laid it out really well. So that's the first place I would point you to, RL. And from there, if there's things you don't understand or things that don't make sense, then start Googling those items, right? You know, start researching that on your own, or start asking ChatGPT, right? But that's what I would point you to. You know, if you're saying I really want to learn ChatGPT, then start going there, because I just, you know, it's one of the better API documentations that I've seen laid out. Like just the way they walk you through like the different phases and all that is really done in a quality way. So that's where I would point you to. It's a resource I've used myself. So I hope that helps you. Okay, Rohan, good to see you. Rohan says, hi, any cloud resources other than Google Colab for training and modeling? For training and modeling, Colab offers only notebook support. Okay, great question, Rohan. Love the question. So I'm going to assume that it means that you want to get away from notebooks or that you don't want to use a notebook. If that's the case, cool. You're on the right track, right? You're on the right track. Because, you know, as you get more, and I say that because as you get more and more into professional development, you are going to be using notebooks less and less. And there's the old saying, you can't deploy a notebook, right? And it's true, right? Notebooks were never really designed to be deployed. Now, I know people are going to say that there are some current tools that allow for that. IBM has made some, if you guys don't know that, IBM has made some steps forward in letting you deploy notebooks and some of their cloud services. But it's still more the exception than the rule, right? But you really can't deploy a notebook, so you should be getting away from that. And you're right, Google Colab is kind of locked into that notebook structure. So Rohan, two things I can recommend to you is one, why not do things locally, right? You know, people kind of rush to cloud, but there's nothing really stopping you from using VS Code and then also running that same code locally. You're probably going to want to use Conda to help you manage your environments, right? And get you started with some libraries and stuff like that. But you can do a lot with with local IDE like VS Code, you know, where you're actually writing the code and then you're executing it locally in a Conda environment. I mean, you can set that up in an hour, right? That's not like a big investment on your part to get that up and running. So that's my first question to you, right? Why not do it locally? The second part is you could also do it with a small online server, you know, that you get from a provider. So for me personally, I use DigitalOcean, and I have a couple of droplets. That's what they call their servers. I have a couple of droplets on DigitalOcean. I've had them for years. And it's just a server that I use to throw up code and just try different things. You know, when I want to, you know, experiment with something, I just, you know, connect to my server and go, right? So I do it on a Mac, and I get one of their Linux servers. So, and I use CentOS because that's the flavor of Linux that I know best. But you know, they're all basically the same at the command level, right? And yeah, and then I just connect my VS Code to that, or excuse me, my local, well, you can connect the VS Code, but I also connect my local terminal to that. And then I write my code in VS Code and I execute on the terminal. Same way I do it in the classes. So if you want to see an example of it, come to the Sunday class. That's exactly how I run the classes. Now, the difference with the Sunday class is that when I'm running it in the terminal, I am still running it locally. I don't send that to my DigitalOcean, but it would look the same either way, right? It's still a terminal interface. It's just whether you're using local CPU or DigitalOcean CPU. And I do that, and it's fairly cost effective. I think the smallest DigitalOcean server is like $5 a month, and I think it might be cheaper in other markets, you know, depending on what data center you're using. So that's the way I do it, right? And I think everybody should have that, you know, because you should always have some experiments or some curiosity going. So you should have your own like lab or your own server to do that. You know, let me know in the chat, guys. Let me know in the chat if there's a demand for that. If you guys want some content on what my local lab looks like. If there's a demand for that, you know, I'll do something on that. It's not very sexy. I mean, I just use a Mac Mini and, you know, a DigitalOcean droplet and VS Code. I mean, it's not spectacular, but it does the job, right? And then also, I know some of you guys might be thinking, well, the Google Colab gives me GPU processing units, and that's true, but there's a lot you can still do on CPU, guys, right? Especially if you're just starting out and learning. Like, there's a lot you can still do on CPU, right? CPU did not become any like less capable just because GPUs came out, right? And I'll tell you guys a story that it's in my video from today, and this story is top of mind because I told it in the video, and I had forgotten about it for a little bit. But when I started data science, I wasn't really a Python expert. I was a C# expert. I'm pretty good at C#. If you want to take me on C#, you better pack a lunch. You're going to have a long day, right? But I had to make the shift to Python. So I had this I had an extended break over Christmas where I taught myself Python. I sat there in my little office. I lived in a different place than I live now. I sat there in my little office. I had 4 screens up and running. I had a 3-screen setup at the time, and then I also had my laptop over to the side here, right? And I remember that I was running such a big model on my laptop because I was experimenting with all kinds of different things. I was running multiple experiments at the same time. And I was running such a big model on my laptop over such a long time that, how like your laptop on the bottom has like little rubber feet, so like it's not actually sitting on the floor, it's sitting on those rubber feet. I managed to melt off the glue from the rubber feet of my laptop. I went to pick up my laptop and the rubber feet stayed there because the glue had like burned up. Like I was doing so much processing that the bottom of my PC, it's a Mac, of my Mac was so hot that the glue came off and I lost the rubber feet off the bottom of my Mac. So when you get to that point, then you can talk about GPU, right? But there's still plenty of processing you can do on CPU locally or on a cheap droplet by somebody like DigitalOcean, right? I'm nearly positive their cheapest CPU droplet is like $5, something like that. But yeah, so that's what I would recommend to you, Rohan. That I commend you for getting away from notebooks. That's excellent. Everybody should be doing that. And then start setting up your own stuff. You can run stuff locally, okay? So I hope that helps you, Rohan. If there's a reason why you're not running locally or something else I'm not understanding, let me know in the chat. And like I said, chat, let me know if you want some content on my local lab setup. And I'm willing to do that, talk about some of the hardware and software that I use. So let me make sure I haven't missed any other questions. Yeah, Patrick has addressed that. Thank you so much, Patrick. Patrick says, we'd love to see your setup. Okay. All right. I'll consider doing that. I think it could be interesting, but like I said, it's not anything sexy. It's just stuff that you use, right? I mean, what's that old saying about it's not the tool, it's the person holding the tool, right? So I have a fairly basic setup, but I do a lot with it. It's never really stopped me before. I mean, there's been very few instances in my career, even when I'm doing work for clients, where you find that hardware is a limitation, right? Like you can always find another way, right? Another option. There are some legitimate situations where hardware becomes an issue. We'll talk about that more as we advance in the book. But unless you're doing some really ridiculous stuff, you can do a lot of things at home. All right, Imaz, our new friend on Instagram, asks, what would you suggest as a university student? Should I develop advanced data science and ML projects or move to NLP, LLM, RAG, which are more about integrating existing APIs after learning machine learning DL? Okay. As a university, should I develop advanced data science and ML projects or move to NLP or I don't know, a couple of different things that are kind of jumping out at me. I guess it depends on how you define advanced data science, right? And also, what's throwing me off is your closing of after learning ML. Like, are you ever done learning ML though? Like, there's always something to learn, right? I mean, I don't think I'd ever declare myself as like being like I'm ready to move on from learning ML. You're always learning something though. And also, when you're talking about NLPs and NLP and LLMs and RAGs, what you're really talking about is Gen AI in general. And there's more. And remember, guys, there's a lot more to Gen AI than just text. Text is leading the way right now, but Gen AI is a lot more than that, right? It's much more powerful than that, much more extensible than that. So why are you looking at NLP specifically? Because that's just what's available to you, or does it inherently interest you in some way? So I'd have to know a little bit more, Imaz, to kind of answer. right? Like I'd have to, like I'd like to see you expand on a couple of different things. You know, if anything, I would tell you, if you feel comfortable as with your skills, but you're still in school, you know, maybe you got another couple of years or whatever, consider taking some business courses, or consider taking something that's going to help you when you're actually like on the job, right? You know, first of all, I just think it's beneficial overall. And second, not everybody's going to be ready for an LLM or Gen AI when you get out into the real world, right? That's quickly changing. But, you know, I'd rather develop the skills that you know people you're going to use, like a business course or like a communication course or something like that, as opposed to something that you're likely to use it but not guaranteed, right? So think about that and send me some more clarification in the comments if you'd like, because, you know, I just kind of want to know where you're thinking there, because like I said, you're never really done learning machine learning, right? I mean, like there's always something new to explore, new techniques, new algorithms that come out, right? New ways to apply those algorithms. So, Keith's resident. Keith's resident. Did you tell us where you're from? I don't think you introduced yourself. Let us know where you're from. And I think this might be your first time in the chat. Hi, what graph database do you recommend to look into other than Neo4j? Neo4j. I really don't have an opinion on this. You know, these things are they're interesting to look at, but at the end of the day, they're going to be driven by your client, right? A lot of these demands on you on individual tools are driven by whatever your client or your company is using. So I think you want to be prepared with some general understanding, but don't get too married to any one tool, because the company's not going to switch for you just because you know one tool and they use another, right? So I don't necessarily have an opinion on this. Just, you know, be flexible and remain ready for what you're going to go into in the workforce, or what your client does, right? So I hope that helps, okay? So Bebop says, it's been a year. I started studying data science and learning through different projects through GitHub, but I'm still not getting confident enough when I look for job interviews. Any suggestions? Okay. All right, Bebop. So it sounds like, you know, you're jumping ahead to familiarizing yourself with tools, right? And code, right? Because you mentioned GitHub and you mentioned projects. But what you might be missing there is a foundation of why you would do such things, or when you would do such things, right? And usually that comes down to the methodology and the process of data science. You know, it's kind of a common trap for people who want to get into the field to jump into code and jump into, you know, copying tutorials or whatever the case may be, right? What you really want to do is you want to dedicate yourself to learning the methodology of it all. Like, why are you choosing to do a project? Why are you, you know, transforming the data in this way? Why are you using, you know, this algorithm, not another one? At what point do you choose an algorithm? At what point do you transform your data? So you're never going to pass interviews just by knowing code, right? You have to know like the methodology, like, why are you doing this? The rationale, right? I mean, you know, as I said before, I only ask theory and rationale questions in my interviews. I don't ask any coding questions. I don't, you know, to some degree, I only want to know you know code, but not that you have to be an expert at it, right? So Bebop, let me know if I'm on the right track, because I'm making a couple of assumptions there, right? Because again, I'm honing in on where you say you're talking about projects in GitHub. What if, you know, what if going to code immediately is not the right thing to do, right? You're never going to be great on a company's staff unless you know when and how to use the algorithms. Excuse me, when and why to use that code and those algorithms, right? So think about that, okay? Kunal Rawal says, hello, sir. I'm Kunal. Nice to see you, Kunal. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. What are your thoughts on AutoML libraries in Python like MLJar, PyCaret, etc.? They can be helpful. They can be helpful to kind of help you reduce your searches or the algorithms you want to go after. But just be careful, right? You want to make sure that you still have a human element to be checking results and running your own tests on the algorithms you should be pursuing. At least, at least that's my take on it. I mean, I know that other AutoML tools are very popular. I get it. And I think there's a way to exploit those tools. But data science is still very much hands-on, right? You should still have some human interpretation to it. I think that's a very healthy thing. So explore the tools, but don't let go of your control or your involvement in those final decisions, or even in the process of how those tools are executed. Okay. Michael says, "Sure, that would be nice." Okay, Michael, I think you're talking about the lab content. Okay. All right, so that's the second vote for the lab content. Chopra, go ahead and introduce yourself. And I'm tempted to skip your question because I don't want to crush you or anything. But the best way to land the data science job is to be a data scientist, right? So if you're declaring yourself a beginner, then maybe this isn't the best time to be looking for a job. But it is an excellent time for you to dedicate yourself to your studies and to come up with your own projects, right? Like don't copy somebody else's code, write your own code, right? Forge your own way. But if you're beginner and job seeker shouldn't go in the same sentence, right? Data science is a serious profession, right? It's not just something you study for and ace the interview, right? That's not really a path with high probability of success. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. Feel free to keep coming back. Feel free to attend the class on Sundays. But, just keep that in mind, right? It's a process. It's not just passing an interview. If you want to go to YouTube, I have a data science roadmap for students that talks about the courses and degrees that I would pursue in the present day. And I say that fully knowing that, some universities, countries, regions don't have data science programs. That's okay. There's other options out there. But the best way to pass the interview to get the job is to be a data scientist, right? That's who the jobs are for. The jobs are for data scientists. Okay, so Rohan says, I will try locally first. Yeah, Rohan, let us know how that works out, Because there's really, you can do a lot with your CPU, right? I mean, maybe not while you're running League of Legends in the background, right? You're gonna want to shut down some things. But yeah, you can do a lot of things locally, right? And Rohan, if you need more help with that, feel free to join the Discord. I think you might already be in the Discord. I think I saw your name there. But if you run into a problem, then post something, right? And maybe other people will help you. Or maybe you can set up a lab with another person or whatever the case may be, right? So, there's other options out there. But I'm glad to see that you're at least willing to try and experiment. That's a very positive thing for a scientific mind, right? Yassine says, can you please talk about the degree of the importance of mastering ML ops for data science? Did you write me last week about ML ops, Yassine? Was that you? Somebody wrote me last week about ML ops. I think that was you, wasn't it? Can you please talk about the degree of importance of mastering ML ops? That really depends. There is no single answer for that. At least not from my experience. Maybe if you're at one of the FANG companies or the main companies, somebody corrected me last week. It should be Main. Maybe if you're at one of those companies where you're consistently pushing out algorithms, then yes, maybe there's a formal process that would formalize into ML ops. But the way I see data science now, the environments that I've seen, the clients I've seen, there's not a lot of formality yet around the ML ops side, or at least not as much as you'd think, right? Most of the time, it gets swallowed up by the DevOps guys, right? And in a way, I'm kind of on board with that because as an algorithm matures, it starts to look just like any other software library, right? You have your inputs, you have your outputs, and something happens in between, right? And so if you can get to that stage, and most advanced Python developers can, then it becomes something that anybody can deploy, right? So I'm not sure if there's like a big like education or career investment to be made there, because most companies haven't matured to that degree. I think you could benefit from getting to a point where you can consistently take the predictive cycles, not the training cycles, right? But the predictive cycles of your code and put it into its own library. Because again, that's usually the last step that most data science teams take, and then they pass it off to whoever's doing the deployment, right? Maybe, I guess if you wanted to study a little bit more of ML ops that I have seen, maybe you'd want to become an expert in like environment management, because that is one of the things you have to do in that handoff that I'm describing. You do have to make sure that you have matching environments, right? So I have been in situations where we also have to hand over the environment files from Conda and maybe a couple of specialized libraries, right? Maybe something that's not available on pip or on Conda Forge or whatever, right? So maybe you'd want to kind of investigate that a little bit, like really know environments backwards and forwards, because that is something you do have to replicate from development to production, or to the other steps in between, right? Maybe you have like a testing environment. But I think that would be it, Yassine. I mean, I just don't, I'm sharing my own bias here, right? But I just don't see like the big career and time investment for that. I'm not sure if I see the justification of that. But again, that's just me, what I've seen. Feel free to disagree with me. I understand that I'm just giving you my own bias, okay? Rex on Twitch says, since we use AI assistance via chatbot on Sunday's class, what are your thoughts on using AI with auto-completion assistance? Google Colab has auto-completion and it gets out lots of suggestions even without prompting. I haven't actually seen that feature, Rex, because I'm really not an avid user of Google Colab. But I'm on board with that. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because what you're describing is similar stuff to what is available like in Visual Studio, right? What was it called? AutoSense, right? Or CodeSense? Yeah, like before LLMs and ChatGPT, right? Visual Studio introduced features where as you were typing, it would anticipate what code you're typing, right? I think it was called CodeSense. CodeSense or AutoSense. Somebody will correct me in the chat. But it's funny because what you're describing is that now that's being available for prompts, right? Because prompts have become our code, right? So yeah, I mean, if I'm understanding it properly as you're describing it, Rex, I'm on board with that. Yeah, obviously you're still going to have to verify, the intent there and make sure that it's what you want. And also, Rex, if you remember in the class, we've talked about times where you kind of have to ask ChatGPT to bookmark some things or to not rewrite the entire piece of code. You only wanted to write certain sections of the code. So you'd want to make sure that this new collab tool accounts for that, right? So you're still going to have to structure it in that way. But otherwise, as you're describing it, I'm kind of on board with it. I'm curious. Maybe I should spend more time on Google Colab. I can't really say I've made that investment in there. But good question, Rex. Somya says, I am planning a deep learning project to predict urban floods and suggest green spaces to mitigate risk from unplanned urbanization using satellite imagery. Could you please share your thoughts on it? Oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. Are you doing this for your self-study? Or what is the like it don't, I'm not smart enough to talk about, the level of advancement in computer vision. But I mean, to me, this sounds like a fairly high level project, right? Planning a deep learning project to predict urban floods and suggest green space mitigators for unplanned urbanization using. You're going to need a lot of data, right? Like, I'm curious about this. Like, what are your plans for the data set you're going to use for this? You're going to need a lot of data and a lot of storage, right? And also, tell me a little bit about your background, because I'm assuming this isn't your first rodeo, right? This project doesn't sound like it's something that somebody new to computer vision would be taking up, right? You've probably done a couple, is that what I'm guessing? So let me know about that. But it sounds interesting to me. It sounds like you're gonna need a lot of data though. But give me some more details there, Sami. It sounds interesting. Uzman asks, can you please explain a little bit of the role of SQL in data science? Is it used only for data storage and extracting? Is it only used for data storage and extracting? Well, the short answer is yes, but I mean but you're covering a lot of ground there when you say that it's used for extracting, right? Like there's a million ways to extract data in SQL, right? So yeah, I mean it is only only used SQL for extracting, but it's a lot, right? There's a lot to it. I think that sometimes as students or as people who don't have like enterprise experience, it's hard to understand exactly how complex some of the databases are in big environments, right? Like you're going to see some database schemas that are super complex. So yes, you're using SQL only for extracting, but you're going to be writing some pretty complex SQL. Like it gets complex quickly with, the different joins, subqueries. Sometimes you're doing some data transforms, some lookups within SQL. So yeah, it's extracting it, but you're going to be writing some really significant queries with it, right? So to me, SQL has always been valuable throughout my career. I learned it, basically as soon as I graduated college, so like early 2000s. And I've used it in just about every project. And I'm glad you're looking at this, Uzman, because sometimes on data science when you're on the small teams, there isn't going to be a dedicated data engineer, right? You're going to have to pull your own data. There's not always going to be somebody out there who's going to produce a nice data pipeline for you. So it's good for you to know SQL because there are going to be times when you need to do your own data queries and seeking out those types of things. So it's good that you're looking at it, but don't think it's just for extracting. I mean, it's a very powerful language. You're going to use it for a lot of different things, okay? Hello, Asser from Iceland. Asser, you might be our first viewer from Iceland. Welcome, nice to see you. How important do you think a master's degree is compared to job experience? So would you suggest continuing studies after BSc or just start job hunting? It's up to you, Asser. It's up to you. To me, that's a very personal decision. Some people like working, others don't. Personally, I had a very, very big gap in between my graduate studies and undergraduate. But I liked it. I liked being exposed to other things. I liked getting some job experience. That may or may not be for you, right? It depends on you. It depends on your finances, what you want from the rest of your life. So I think there's a lot of value in getting job experience. Maybe you don't like data science. Maybe you go out there and do data science a couple of years and you think, oh, this sucks, right? And you go and do a master's in something completely different, right? That can happen. Data science isn't for everyone, right? So I think there's a lot of value in it, but I also respect that it's a very personal decision for you to decide that, right? But yeah, I mean, you don't mention what your undergrad is in. I'd be curious to know what your undergrad is in. But yeah, it just depends on what you want out of life. So I hope that helps, but there's really no clear answer. Only you can decide the answer. So Imaz says, by advanced project, I mean projects related to hyperparameter tuning, optimization on big data, or something like that. In my country, scope of Gen AI mostly revolves around chatbots or things like that. Um, well, yeah, but you can do a lot with those chatbots in Gen AI, right? It's not about the chat interface, it's about what they're pulling from. Right? Remember, I've said this before, everything we're seeing with like chatbots and LLMs and ChatGPT, this is all just early stages, guys. Lots more to come, right? Because think about this. Everything you see out there right now with ChatGPT, that's all trained on public data, right? Newspaper articles, press releases, stock information, whatever, right? Publicly available reports. Like it's a significant number, don't get me wrong. But it's not nearly as big as all the private documents that are locked up by all these companies or even internal industry documents, right? So, don't be quick to like move on from Gen AI just because it's about chatbots to documents. Like, we have a long ways to go, right? And then also, Gen AI is, as I said, also is not just about text. What about video? What about images? Like Samya earlier asked about images, right? You could be doing LLMs around that. You could train not an LLM. Sorry, you could do a Gen AI project around that, right? You could train a Gen AI tool to consistently scan satellite images to recognize these flood areas, right? So, let's pump the brakes here, right? And people who are quick to move on from the current stages don't understand the current stages, right? Like this is all just early days. There is like a million more things to come. Like whatever documents you think ChatGPT has been trained on, I would say at least 10x it for what like private companies can add via their LLM, via their own internal repositories, right? Like, do you know how much paperwork a bank produces like on a yearly basis, or like any finance company out there, or like a pharmaceutical company, right? Like all these internal documents and all the stuff they have. Like, do you know how many HR policy handbooks there are in the world? All of those, like we haven't even begun to explore those types of LLMs. Some companies are, I get clients that are, they're a little bit ahead of the curve, right? But then think about this way. Even if you were to finish all of that, and that's still like years and years and years of work, you're still building on top of OpenAI. You're still building on top of ChatGPT. Eventually, people are going to want to build their own LLMs from the ground up, right? Like you're going to want to say, I'm going to start from scratch and build my own LLM. I don't want to use OpenAI anymore. I want to train my own from day one, document one. Trust me, that's going to happen. Look, I love this question. I'm probably spending too much time on it, but I'm going to give you guys a play out of my own playbook that I use with my clients, okay? So this is what I tell my clients. When somebody asks me to look at their LLM, and I get that request a lot. Do you guys know the first question that I ask? I get on their LLM and I immediately type in, who owns the New York Yankees? That's my first prompt to every single LLM I use. Because if I'm sitting in the middle of a banking floor, like in New York, and I'm at a bank, and they're telling me that they're deploying this LLM to help them with, problem XYZ, I sit down and I say, who owns the New York Yankees? Because if you're really writing something custom for yourself that you want to use and improve on, your LLM shouldn't know that answer. That means you've just built on top of public LLMs, right? You've built on top of like the ChatGPT or Claude or whatever interface. That's going to change. I want to get to we will get to the point where I can sit in front of an LLM, or you can sit in front of an LLM, and somebody will tell you it's an LLM for a medical company, let's say, or for a hospital, right? I mean, do you know how many records hospitals have? And you could sit down and say, who owns the New York Yankees? And the reply will be, That's out of my realm. I don't care. I'm just here to talk about these records. No LLM out there right now does that, right? So these are the things that are coming. I guarantee you this is all coming. I mean, this is kind of like where my consulting is going, right? This is where I'm taking my own personal consulting practice, right? Now, see, now you guys made me say that on stream. Now I got to go make content about the New York Yankees about why I asked that question. But like I said, I'm giving you stuff out of my own playbook. This is stuff that I use. But that day is coming. So let's pump the brakes. Just because Gen AI is using chatbots and your friend across the street uses it doesn't mean that it's over, that it's oversaturated, right? Plenty of stuff to come with Gen AI and LLMs and imagery and video. This is all early days, guys. This is all early days. Trust me on that. All right, so I gave you guys a long answer on that one, but like I said, I'm giving you stuff out of my own playbook. I hope that helps. Bvav says, thanks for the response and continuation from where I can learn methodology, and as I said, out of confidence. 2 ways. 1, you're going to learn it, hopefully, on the job if you have good leadership and you're working in a good data science team. 2nd, you'll find it in my book, First Year in Data Science, because guys, personally, I'm really big on methodology. When a first-year analyst joins my team, I tell them, if you're going to learn nothing else from me, learn methodology. It's super important. That's what I tell them, because I really want them to learn that. So you can learn it from there. I have an entire chapter on methodology. I even have color graphs in there. But it's a super important topic. Like I said, unless you know that, then you'll never know the why and the when of applying things, right? Ricardo Ramon, hello, Dennis and Philadelphia Data Science. Good to see you, Ricardo. Hope you're well in Atlanta, I believe. I think you're our man in Atlanta, so hope you're well. Uzair, hi, Uzair here. I love tuning into your streams. Well, Uzair, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming back, and it's good to see you again. Prajwal says, I have just started my data science course and not good at coding at all. How can I survive? Don't worry about the coding. Worry about learning what data science is about, especially if you're just at the beginning, right? Try to learn the why, right? The why and the process of methodology, of data science, right? Data science is not a result. It's a process. It's a way of doing things, right? And remember, guys, one of the reasons I stress methodology and why I say data science is a process is because I guarantee you, I 100% guarantee you that sometime in the future in your career, you will be burned by an algorithm that gives the wrong answer. In fact, it might happen multiple times in your career. And that business stakeholder is going to come back to you and say, why did this happen? And at that point, you will lean back on your methodology and the process. And if you had poor methodology, then it's on you. But if you didn't have poor methodology, then it's on variance, right? Or entropy, or whatever you'd want, however you'd want to put that. But keep that in mind, right? That's why I stress this, because I'm looking ahead here for you guys. I guarantee you that's going to happen. And somebody's going to come to you and say, show me how you got to this terrible, horrible answer that you gave us. And you can say, well, I didn't give you, I may have given you a bad answer, but I didn't give you a bad process. Here's why. Here's the methodology we followed. So that's probably a little bit more than you bargained for that answer. But that's what I'm giving you my rationale for why I stress this when I say that. Because your methodology needs to be solid for anything you do. If you're not, then you're just being careless, and that's going to cause problems for you in the future. Maybe some very serious problems. But I hope that helps you. Ima says, I mean excellence in machine learning, deep learning should be my focus, or familiarize myself with Gen AI as much as possible. Is there a difference though? I mean, machine learning Machine learning and deep learning, I mean, you're kind of talking neural networks, right? In most cases, right? I know there's exceptions. Does Gen AI not use neural networks? Let's make that a chat question. So chat, let's make some audience participation, guys. In the chat, give me a 1 if generative AI uses neural networks, and give me a 0 if Gen AI does not use neural networks. And if you don't know, that's okay. You can just take a vote, just do your best. But give me a 1 if Gen AI uses neural networks, and give me a 0 if it doesn't use neural networks. Okay? Alan, my good friend. Alan was in our class yesterday. I think you were there for the whole class, Alan. Thanks for hanging out with us yesterday. Okay, I'm already seeing some votes. Imaz, do me a favor. Look ahead and look at the votes, okay? And then think about your question, and I'm going to come back to you, okay? But I want you to look at the votes and then think about your last question. So Alan says, do you have any insight on how useful the Power BI certificate is in the realm of data analytics? I think it can be very powerful. Power BI 1 is gaining an increasing install base. Microsoft seems to be really putting a lot of marketing dollars behind Power BI and getting it into their existing license holders, right? And 2, one of the reasons I like Power BI and Tableau is because it lets you make interactive dashboards, right? And we talked about this a little bit over the weekend. I can't remember which stream it was. But when you're doing EDA, you want to make sure that you're giving your stakeholders an interactive way to work with the data. Because now that makes it a two-way conversation where you're enabling them to do different cuts of data, and then they're the ones bringing you the data science ideas, right? It shouldn't always be your team saying these are the insights and these are the outcomes we can do. I mean, you're not a business team, you're a tech team, right? So enable the business to do their own cuts, and they're going to come back to you and say, hey, we found this thing, could you write an algorithm for us? And you say, yeah, sure, no problem, right? Power BI, in my opinion, lets you as the data science team deploy that in a very quick way, right? Like the interface and the tools that they offer, it's a kind of intuitive and kind of quick for you to be able to say, hey, business team, here's a dashboard that we deployed for you, and feel free to look at it because I gave you these 20 filters and interactive charts and all that other stuff that you can play with. Let us know what you think. So Power BI and Tableau also do that to a much better extent than most other packages that I have seen. So Alan, if that's something that's kind of like on your roadmap or you want to do it, I'm on board with it. I think it's a good move. So good luck with that. Let us know how that works out. Yassine says, thank you, sir. You're welcome, Yassine. I hope that helps. I'm just giving you my perspective, so I hope that helps. Emha says, hello from Indonesia. Emha, I don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome if this is your first time. Indonesia, beautiful country. I was just there exactly a year ago. I went to Bali last August, so beautiful country, very nice people, and enjoyed my time there. Delorier? I don't think you told us where you're from. Let us know where you're from. We always ask people to introduce themselves. I'm studying business management. You think it's a good start to be in data science in the future? Yeah. In fact, I invite you to view my video today on my path into data science. And I talk about that, about how my business degree has actually been very helpful. I don't have a technical degree. My undergrad is in international business. So I know that's a little bit different than business management, but I have found it super helpful in many times throughout my career. So Dolier, I think you're fine with that. It's going to be on you to develop the tech skills, right? You're going to have to put in extra work to do that. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a path between a business student and becoming a data scientist. It can be done. So like I said, I invite you to look at my video today. And for anybody else who joined late, today I finally put out the video where I give you the entire story of how I became I went from software developer to data science. It made me remember so many different stories, so many different things that I share in there. So you're welcome to see it. You know, I just think it was a really fun video to make, and I think it'll be good for you guys. And I share a lot of personal things in there, so you can kind of understand the journey and how I ended up here. Okay, Uzair says, what role does cloud play in machine learning? I'm very new, and also how do I learn cloud, or how should I do it? Please explain. I'm very new and confused. Okay. So Uzair, if you're new to data science, then just learn it one bit at a time, right? And the way to do that one bit at a time is to forget cloud. Do everything locally. Because learning cloud and learning data science are almost like kind of two different things, right? Because, you know, we basically never talk about the cybersecurity aspect of being on a cloud, and we should, right? And that's a very big topic, right? So keep things simple. Develop things locally, right? Why even go to the cloud? Because you're basically just deciding to learn, instead of learning one tool at the same time, you're going to learn two tools at the same time. So that's why you're confused, right? Just run your models locally. You know, we're going through this entire book on Sundays. You're welcome to come there. And I'm doing everything local. You know, the people that are in the chat right now that have come can attest to that. I run everything locally. It runs just fine. We're learning a ton with just our local CPU, right? So don't get all confused with all these other items when you could just be doing it locally, learning on your own pace, you know, taking it easy and learning just fine, right? So that's my recommendation to you. Forget about cloud. Just get the best book you can. Come on Sundays if you want, 1500 GMT, or watch the replays on YouTube, or just do your own stuff at home. And just start building your toolbox. Okay, I'm going to learn a little bit of this. I'm going to learn a little bit of that. Okay, now I'm ready to understand this first model. And now that I know about some of the process of data science, maybe I can start looking at this second model. And do this all locally. Build up those skills, and then look at cloud down the road, right? So just break it up. Keep it simple. No need to learn cloud from day one. Somia says, yes, it's for my personal study purposes. Oh, wow, you're brave. You're brave. That's a huge project to take on as a personal study, so congratulations. I am a data science intern. I'm unsure about data, and it's large too, but I'm interested to take some research on these. Come to know that some pre-trained model for satellite imagery. Okay, so have you done other pre-trained models though, Samia? Or is this your first model ever? Like, I can't tell if you're saying this is your first satellite imagery model or, you know, CV model, or first model ever. Give me more feedback on them, because for a first model ever, it seems a little aggressive, right? And I don't want to discourage you from that, but maybe there's other projects you could be taking on, right? Okay. So let me quickly address all of the votes in the chat. Because obviously I don't see any zeros, right? It seems like everybody in the chat is on board with neural networks being used in generative AI. Moody Smack says 1, obviously. Which, yes, Moody, that's obviously the right answer, right? So I think you guys understand where I was going with that in asking that question, right? So coming back to our friend Imaz, yeah. So Imaz, you're not getting away from Gen AI, just because you're learning machine learning. You are learning it, right? Look, Gen AI is just another application of machine learning, right? Like, and I've shared this in other chats, and I'm happy to share it again because I know I get a lot of new followers, right? But if you're advanced in machine learning, as you say you are, and you're advanced in neural networks, then you know what a GAN is, right? GAN. It stands for Generative Adversarial Network. That G in that word, Generative Adversarial Network, is the same G in generative AI. GANs is what powers generative AI, right? So there is no like moving on from machine learning into Gen AI. It's all the same thing. It's just a different way to put the tools together. it's just still powering. It's still powered by neural networks underneath the hood. It's a very unique application of neural networks, right? GANs is a very unique field of study. I appreciate that, right? I'm not trying to like minimize it. But if you're still studying machine learning, you're still studying neural networks, it's the same thing. Like there is no like Gen AI specific tools like, oh, now you got to go learn a whole new language, a whole new set of algorithms. Like, no, it's the same thing, just applied in a different way. So I hope the point's coming across, and you can see the votes in the chat, right? That you're still learning it, like you're still equipping yourself in an appropriate way, right? So keep on with the machine learning, because also, like I said, it's kind of weird to think about machine learning as having a finish line. Like there is no finish line. Like, you know, like I'm still learning about machine learning, right? And you learn something from every project, the different data, the different transforms, the different results you're going to get, the different layers, the different nodes, the different types of nodes, right? Like there's no finish line to that, right? So I hope that helps you, Maz, and I hope that you know, seeing it from your peers here in the chat, you know, you can see that, you know, it's all neural networks based anyways. Except for Ambad, who gave us a 0 and an emoji. There's always one in every crowd. Somebody has to be different. That's funny. That's a good one, Ambad. You made me laugh today. All right. Well, why don't I'm tempted to end it there on a high note, but we still have some really good questions here. All right, Moody. I'm gonna make these the last two questions. I see Moody and Ravindran. So Moody says, "Hello, Mudassir here from Pakistan. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Nice to see you, Mudassir. What should I do masters in? I've done computer science and I'm confused between AI and data science. Plus, I really like math." Moody. So do you mean that there's a separate AI and a separate data science masters? Or are you talking about career paths? Well, because really, either way, there really shouldn't be a big difference, you know? Like a data science curriculum shouldn't really vary that much from an AI curriculum. Like, are you seeing a massive difference? Like, have you sat there and compared the curriculums? Because I know you might be, I'm assuming maybe you're looking at multiple schools, but the curriculums themselves are probably not as different as you would think. You know, schools are no different, right? I mean, everybody in the world right now is trying to add an AI tag or an AI twist to their marketing to make them sound, you know, hip and current and sell more, right? But like on a one-to-one basis, are you finding that there's a big difference in the curriculum? There probably shouldn't be. You know, if you have, you know, let me know. I'd be personally interested in seeing that. Like that interests me. But my guess is that if you really sat down and, you know, and did a line-by-line comparison, it's very similar curriculums. And then same thing with the jobs, right? As you've seen before, you know, in our previous conversations, right? Like it's not like Gen AI is like, oh no, throw away all your ML books, throw away all your data science books. You got to buy all your Gen AI books now. It's not like that, right? It's the same thing, just different application, different approaches to them. Right. So yeah, so if I missed something, you know, feel free to clarify. But I mean, I probably not a big difference if you really sat down with the curriculums of whatever master's programs you're looking at. Okay, Ravindran, I'm going to make you the last question because I know you've been a big supporter, and I want to recognize that. Can you explain how do I create a chatbot agent for specific domains using a knowledge base? Yeah, Ravindran, you might have missed it earlier, but Go to OpenAI. OpenAI has an excellent walkthrough of exactly the problem you're talking about. Their documentation walks you through, and I'll put this in the Discord, by the way. I know a few of you are in the Discord, but I'll put the link in the Discord. They walk you through how to do an LLM for the Tokyo Olympics. Like they literally walk you step by step. They tell you, we went to Wikipedia. Here's how we scraped Wikipedia. Here's what we did with that. Like they literally walk you step by step. It's an excellent tutorial, even though it's not really intended. It's actually part of their documentation. But that's where I would point you, Ravindran. I mentioned it earlier in this stream. Maybe, you know, maybe you just came in late or whatever. But it's an excellent tutorial. I literally use that myself to do some of my own early experimentation. But yeah, that's where I would point you to. Do everything they did, but then substitute your own knowledge base. It sounds like you have something in mind already, and just go from there. But that's what I would recommend to you, Ravindra. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream here. Thank you so much for spending time with me. We're off to a good start. I feel like we had a good chat for a Monday, right? So let's make this a strong week. Let's make this a good week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. And I'll see you next time.